Hello and welcome back to the Fashion Photography Masterclass. My name is Naz and today we're going to be talking about inspiration. So what it is, how can we get it, how can we cultivate it, and what is it needed for? And we're also going to be going through how to actually get started to create your own fashion imagery and fashion story. Before we look into inspiration, first we need to decide what type of fashion photography would you like to create. So there are different types of fashion photography, including editorial, street style, lookbooks, and beauty. And for the purpose of this masterclass, I would suggest looking into street style or lookbooks just because they're a really good way to start. You don't need much of a team and you can just get going with a camera yourself and a model. So here I've included different types of fashion photography ranging from editorial to higher fashion to catalogue to street photography. There's so many different types and you can just do a Google search and find out what those different types are, but I've included a few here. There is a little description below each photography type just so you can understand a little bit more about that type of photography and what it entails. Have a look through this and decide which suits you best and what you'd like to create. You could challenge yourself and find something that you've not tried before. So just to touch briefly on what street fashion photography actually is, it's basically just a more candid approach to fashion photography. So it places more focus on the model and their own style, so it's less trend focused and more about what that model is actually wearing and how that represents who they are as a person and what they like to wear. It's usually shot in an urbanized area, so as the name suggests, on a street or in a built up area with lots of buildings, usually has a more urban feel. So here are a few examples of street style fashion photography. These were taken from London Men's Fashion Week, and these really just show what street fashion photography is all about. It's about great lighting, great garments, and great people to photograph. I think these images really do give a good example of what it is to do street photography. It's about capturing the person as well as the garments and what makes them them. As you can see, there's a lot of detail shots as well, which are really important for street fashion photography because you want to get an essence of all the finer details that go into putting a look together. But you do want to make sure that the lighting is really clear and that you're really capturing the subject and making the subject at the forefront of the picture and the image. So now you've decided what type of fashion photography you'd like to do, or if you're going along with my recommendation to do street fashion photography, we now need to start looking at inspiration. So what is it? Inspiration is the process of being mentally stimulated to create something. It's really important to start with our inspiration. It can get so confusing and there can be so many different ideas that we'd love to incorporate, but if we have a clear starting point, a clear vision and clear inspiration references, then it means that our idea is really polished and that we can really just focus on the things that make our story strong or our image strong. So to get started on finding our inspiration, I think a really good starting point would be for us to go back to the task that I set you in the last video. So I asked you to stop and look at an image that caught your eye and write down 3 reasons why you stopped to look at that image. I think that'd be a really good starting point just because you've already got one image that caught your eye. I'm now going to be taking you through my own methods and how to put this all into practice. So the key to inspiration is looking at the world around you and what you find interesting. It could be nature, or it could be the area that you live in, or maybe a surrounding area or a location you visited recently. Anything that stands out to you. Another great source is Instagram. It's a really good platform for liking and keeping track of what you've liked visually. You can also use fashion magazines or photojournalism magazines, any magazines that you find interesting. Just make sure you're keeping a note of everything that you see that inspires you. It could be color, texture, lighting, the subject, it could be anything. Just make sure you're keeping a note and writing down whatever you see that you think you might want to use as reference for your photo shoot. You can even create a scrapbook or start posting things to your wall. Whichever way you do it, just make sure you're keeping a note. Once you have your starting point, the next step would be to create your mood board. I like to use Pinterest to do this, as you can create boards on there and pin any inspirational images you might find. If you go into your boards, you can create different boards for different projects. I'm going to show you one of the boards I created previously for a project I had in mind. And here you're going to see some images that I found inspirational. So from colour and subject, I really just chose a range of images that I thought would best represent the image I'm trying to create myself. From the image board I created on Pinterest, I then moved over into PowerPoint presentation, which you can find on your computer, or Keynote, which would be on a Mac, and I created my own mood board using those images. This is really good for narrowing down your ideas and really getting a sense of how you want your images to turn out. This is a mood board I created previously for a street photography style project. I did the same method by collecting lots of images I found inspirational and adding them to a PowerPoint presentation so that I can have all my visual references in one place. You could also use a storyboard to help plan your photo shoot. They're really useful for jotting down your ideas and images you might have in mind to capture on the day. So I hope you found this really useful and helpful to get you started and get you on the right track. In our next masterclass, we're going to be looking at the developmental stages, which is more to do with camera, equipment and location. So I hope you stay tuned for that and see you in the next episode.